morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice Radio. So today, we are continuing our look at the complete history of the Pokemon trading card game, and we have made it to the third Diamond and Pearl set, Secret Wonders. And I am not exaggerating when I say that this brought us what is probably the most dominant deck we've ever seen. It's also kicked off a run of many phenomenal sets in a row. I would be pretty happy calling the next 7 expansions after this one genuinely phenomenal sets. This one is a good set, but really it's most famous for bringing us that Gardevoir deck. So this was released in Japan on July the 5th, 2007, and it got an English release on November the 7th, 2007. But because we had the rise of Darkrai coming out in Japan, there were a bunch of changes made. Now, the lovely folks at Bulbapedia clued me into this one. Good website, great for research. And essentially, what happened was that they removed a bunch of cards from the English set, or from the Japanese set that should have been in the English set, because it was too early for the movie. They would put them in the next set when the movie was coming out. And then they brought some cards which should have been in the following set for the set, so that we could have them instead. And of course, these new cards basically meant we would actually get them pretty much simultaneously with Japan, which didn't happen very often and was kind of cool. So the cards they took away were Darkrai, Dialga, and Palkia, along with Darkrai level X, Dialga level X, and Palkia level X. See what they did there? You know, very movie focused. And they added in Gardevoir, Roserade, Electivire, Magmortar, Weavile, Roselia, Electabuzz, Magmar, Gardevoir level X, and Honchco level X. So if anyone's keeping score, yeah, this set was actually made phenomenal because of the cards they added in from what should have been the following set, which is kind of cool. Now, they did actually, and this is a little bit weird, for the first time they actually held back some reverse holo cards for blisters. So if we have a look at these Breloom and Quagsire blisters here, we can actually see that they've got the reverse holos, which you would usually expect to be finding randomly in packs, that were actually saved for blisters, which is why occasionally you'll find people buying old packs of Secret Wonders and getting extremely confused when they just cannot pull particular reverse holos. Generally, every card in the set can be found as a reverse holo. Not in Secret Wonders, ladies and gentlemen. Not in Secret Wonders. Now, we did actually have a continuation of held items in this set, but rather than just being berries, what we got were some evolution items. So Clefairy came along with a Moonstone that allowed you to evolve it the turn you play it. We then saw that Murkrow came along with a Duskstone that let you evolve it the turn you played it. And then we did also see a Duskull come along with a Reaper Cloth that allowed you to evolve the turn you played it. Alright, so they were quite uniform, I think is a polite way to put it, but actually they are really cool. And remember, these are held items, so they're not abilities or Pokepowers and Pokebodies as they were back then, which means they were not turned off in the same way as those. In fact, I'm fairly sure we never actually had a way to turn these off, which is really cool. Speaking of really cool, we actually had a banned card in this set. And it's not one you would ever probably imagine. It was Wormadam Sandycloak. And the reason this was banned was very, very simple. At the Professor Cup, they always have a tournament, a TCG tournament with different rules. And one of the rules back in 2008 was that you were only allowed to use cards that were common or uncommon. Anything that was rare or above was banned. Now, Wormadam Sandycloak in Secret Wonders is a rare, and therefore was banned. But remember those pop packs I told you about? You'd go to League, play a few games, get a pop pack with a couple of cards in? Well, in Pop 7, one of the cards you could get was this Wormadam Sandycloak as an uncommon card. So, of course, what happened was that this became completely legal because it was printed as an uncommon card. and it completely broke the Professor Cup. Now, this wasn't banned for the Professor Cup in Europe, so everybody played it, and this was the only really good deck you could play. So by the time we got around to the Professor Cup in North America, they had essentially cottoned on and fixed it. And it actually became the first card that had been banned since Slowking from Neo Genesis, though it was only banned at the Professor's Cup North America in 2008. Is it a particularly good card? I mean, yes, when you're comparing it to other commons and uncommons. The Pokebody prevents all effective attacks, excluding damage done to Wormadam's Sandy Cloak, although it was later errata to make it clear that it was only from your opponent's Pokemon, not from your own, i.e. you can damage it, but no special conditions, no energy removal, etc. And then free energy, 40 damage, plus 10 more for each fighting energy attached to Wormadam's Sandy Cloak. And when you're only playing against commons and uncommons, this built up to one-hit KOs pretty gosh darned quickly. And I don't have a great story about this card, but look how amazing the artwork on this Phanpy is. Look how adorable he is. It's also kind of similar to a Phanpy that's coming out in the not too distant future that I am very excited about. But that's a story for another video. The pre-release promo here was Curlier. That's cool, especially given how good Gardevoir ended up being. And we had 2 level X's in the set that were Gardevoir and Honchco, both of which were very, very good and we will be talking about later. Now, in terms of the most expensive card in the set, it's actually just the Holo Charizard. I've told you in the last couple videos, these Diamond and Pearl sets are not famous for having particularly expensive cards, but the Charizard will come in at about $80. After that, we're looking at Gardevoir Level X, which will come in at somewhere in the region of $40, which of course, significantly cheaper. Now, in terms of the theme decks here, we're talking an ordinary everyday run-of-the-mill set, not introducing a new generation. So we've got 2 theme decks, and they are very themed. We've got Lava Flow, and we've got Powerhouse. Now, Lava Flow was the Magmortar theme deck. It was Fire and Grass, and you got yourself a holo version of Magmortar, which was exclusive to the deck. It was a non-holo only in the set. And then you got yourself a non-holo Arcanine, and a non-holo Venusaur, which was exclusive because Venusaur only existed as a holo in the set proper. Over in Powerhouse, we're talking the Electivire theme deck. We've got Lightning Fighting, and you get yourself a holo Electivire, exclusive because it was a non-holo in the set. And then you got yourself a rare Electrode and a rare Ampharos, which of course was interesting because Ampharos was only a holo in the main set, so this one was exclusive to this particular deck. How lovely. Now, in terms of the best cards, we do need to start off with Gardevoir. Gardevoir was just a flat-out, over-the-top, phenomenal card. It had the poke. Now, bearing in mind, we're talking 110 HP Stage 2. We were in very different times back then, but this was a deck that dominated pretty much like no other deck, or at least in very rare company. The Poke-Powered Telepass, once during your turn, you may search your opponent's discard pile for a supporter, and use the effect of that card as the effect of this power. But you could not use more than 1 Telepass Poke-Power each turn, so even if you got multiple Gardevoir, you can only use 1. But it still gives you a second supporter card every turn, which is kind of ridiculous. Then we've got Psychic Double Colorless 60 damage. During your opponent's next turn, your opponent cannot use any Poke Powers on his or her Pokemon. So what we've got here is a Pokemon that lets you use an extra supporter card and turns off both Poke Powers and Poke Bodies, which is a little bit ridiculous. But we then played it with Glade. That was the other one of these evolution line in this set, and yes, it was phenomenal as well. Sonic Blade, 1 fighting, 1 colorless energy. Put damage counters on the defending Pokemon until it is 50 HP away from being knocked out. And then your opponent switches a defending Pokemon with one of his or her benched Pokemon. So you got a 2 energy attack that puts anything into fairly easy KO range. Or Psychic Double Colorless 60 damage. You may choose as many of your face down prize cards as you like and put them face up. If you do, this attack does 60 damage plus 20 more for each prize card that you chose. And of course, being a fighting Pokemon, it means you're hitting for 2 different weaknesses. And while we're talking through this evolution line, we should probably mention Gardevoir Level X. Gardevoir Level X had the Pokepower Teleportation. Once during your turn, choose one of your active Pokemon or one of your bench Pokemon and switch Gardevoir with that Pokemon, i.e. it either allowed you to switch into or out of the active spot. It's a fairly handy Pokepower. Oh yeah, and then for 2 Psychic Energy, choose one Pokemon with the fewest remaining HP other than Gardevoir and KO it. So for 2 energy, you could get an instant KO. Now, if there were Pokemon that were tied on the lowest HP, you got a choice. But do remember, if you only had one Pokemon with the lowest HP and it was yours, this would KO that, so don't use this attack. But do remember that Glade put one of your opponent's Pokemon down to 50 HP, ready to be KO'd with Gardevoir later on. And these 3 cards really did come around as just a redonkulous, over-the-top, phenomenal deck. We'll have a look a little bit more in a second. Now, the other Level X in the set was Honchco Level X, and this was a really good card as well. 2 Colorless Energy, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and do 40 damage to it. 2 Darkness 1 Colorless 60 damage. If the defending Pokemon would be knocked out by damage from this attack, you may search your discard pile for any card and put it into your hand. So you basically get a KO, while also getting to grab any card from your discard. That sounds pretty good to me. And remember, of course, in the previous video, we did talk about Honchco, and that's got the Pokepower or Pokebody Dark Genes. As long as Honchco has the necessary energy to use its attack, each of your Murkrow can use Honchco's attack as its own, even if it doesn't have the necessary energy, which seems a little bit broken good. Oh yeah, and of course we had the Murkrow in this set that can evolve the turn you play it, and this was a pretty useful card. Wasn't great on its own, mind you, but in a Honchco deck it was pretty gosh darn good. Now, the Electrode in this set was actually very cool. It had the Pokepower Energy Shift. Once during your turn, if Electrode would be knocked out by damage from an attack, you don't discard Electrode. Instead, you attach it as an energy card to one of your Pokemon. And then it is a special energy that provides every type of energy, but only one at a time. This was actually played in that Intimidation deck that did actually get printed as a Worlds deck. It was taken to a top 8 finish by Dylan Bryan, which was kind of cool. Though we haven't reached Sizzle yet. Sizzle will be coming around when we get to Majestic Dawn in a couple of sets' time. That was a good expansion, incidentally, but we're not there yet. We will get there. Now, there was an Ampharos in this set, and the Ampharos was very, very cool. It had the Pokebody Jamming. After your opponent plays a supporter card from his or her hand, you put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Though this was another one of those that was limited to once during your turn. I.e., you can have as many Ampharos out as you like, but you would only be dropping 1 lot of damage on. Otherwise, it would be a little bit unfair. Lightning double colorless 70 damage, let you discard all lightning energy from Ampharos, and then do 20 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon with any energy attached to it. It was just a really nice spreading Pokemon, and yeah, it became significantly better when the other Ampharos came out in Platinum, and then you had the pair of them that could be played around with together. But make no mistake about it, this was still a very, very cool card, and did pop up in a few decks here and there. Now, Bayonet was a very cool card from this set. It had a free attack, put as many damage counters as you like on Bayonet, put that many damage counters on the defending Pokemon, and then for 2 Psychic Energy you did 40 damage. If Bayonet is in your discard pile, this attack does 40 damage, plus 40 more damage, and then you searched your discard pile for Bayonet, showed it to your opponent, and shuffled it into your deck. It was a Gardevoir counter, simple as that. Gardevoir had a plus 30 weakness to Psychic. This was a Psychic Pokemon that did 80 damage. Oh look, it did the exact right amount to get a KO. And it did end up being teched into a bunch of decks purely as Gardevoir hate. Now, I have mentioned Murkrow already. It's also worth mentioning Duskull here. It had, again, that ability that held item, that let you evolve it the turn you play it. And remember, I have told you in the previous couple of videos that the Dusknoir from Diamond and Pearl was actually a really, really nice card that got teched into a bunch of decks. So clearly this was a good option. And then Trapinch, I mean, we're talking about a bunch of basic evolving Pokemon. We might as well give a quick shout out to Trapinch. Flygon, there were a bunch of them in later sets that ended up being really good, and this was the Trapinch of choice that we would use. It was a very cool Trapinch. 1 colourless energy, switch the defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's bench, or 1 fighting energy, the defending Pokemon cannot retreat during your opponent's next turn. We're not talking some phenomenal card here, but it did actually have a couple of really nice useful attacks that are worth mentioning. Now, moving over into the trainer cards here, there weren't actually very many trainer cards at all that weren't reprints in this set. There were 3, but 2 of them were awesome. Roseanne's Research was just flat out one of the very, very best cards that we had in the format at the time. Roseanne's Research was nuts. It was a supporter card that let you search your deck for up to 2 in any combination of basic Pokemon and basic energy. So you could grab 2 Pokemon, 2 energy, or 1 of each. And this was just phenomenal. In a couple sets, we will see some ridiculous draw Pokemon, such that we weren't really needing to use supporters to draw cards very much. So this would go and search out one of those Pokemon, while also searching out an energy, and it was just ridiculous. Or if it was turn 1, you could search a couple of basics to help you get set up. Or if it was late in the game and you just needed energy, it would search for that as well. This was a ridiculous card. The other really good new card here was Team Galactic's Mars. Draw 2 cards, then choose a card from your opponent's hand without looking, and put it on the bottom of his or her deck. It was hand disruption. And we're not talking phenomenal hand disruption, we're talking about 1 card at random. But actually, if you were going for a dedicated hand disruption deck, this could be the difference. It saw a bunch of play in a bunch of decks. Now, it wasn't a particularly great card, but the only other trainer card that was new in this set was Professor Oak's Visit. You drew 3 cards, and then you took 1 card from your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck. Not a phenomenal card, but I needed to shout it out because there are only 3 new trainers in the set, and we just talked about the others. Seemed rude to exclude it. Now, in terms of top decks, it really was all about Gardevoir Glade. This was one of the very, very best decks that we ever saw, quite frankly. It was just over the top. And it was kind of everything about the deck. It was Gardevoir locking your opponent out of Poké Powers. It was using the extra supporter. It was being able to switch whenever you needed it. It was being able to get instant KOs with Gardevoir level X. It was being able to hit 2 different weaknesses. It won the World Championships piloted by Jason Klaczynski, his 2nd World Championship win. And obviously printed as a Worlds deck. But it also won US Nationals piloted by Gino Lombardi. It was an absolutely just phenomenal over-the-top deck. Team Galactic's Wager became a very nice card in the deck. That's the one that let you play rock, paper, scissors, and if you won, you got a new hand of 6, and your opponent got a new hand of 3. If you're good at rock, paper, scissors, putting your opponent down to a 3-card hand while making sure that they couldn't use any Poké Powers, for a lot of decks, honestly, that was enough. It's worth pointing out that Glade's Psychic Cut could actually do as much as 180 damage, which was just ridiculous back at the time. Like, absolutely over the top ridiculous. And sure, you couldn't use it turn after turn after turn, but anytime you needed a giant KO, it was totally there for you. Jason's Worlds winning deck did play that Dusknoir that either put 5 damage counters on the defending Pokemon and then put extra damage counters equal to the number of prize cards your opponent has taken. Or you had the Poké Power that if your opponent had 4 or more bench Pokemon, you could choose one of them and shuffle it and all cards attached to it into his or her deck. So you'd end up playing a card like Warp Point, for instance, to make your opponent switch their active, and then you could go and use Dusknoir to make them pick that Pokemon up, which is kind of ridiculous. Remember, Dusknoir let you choose which one you put into their deck from their bench, which honestly seems a little bit unfair, but hey-ho, it worked. And we really just have one of the most devastating decks we've ever seen. It was absolutely huge, to the point where you basically played Gardevoir Glade, or you played a direct counter to Gardevoir Glade. That was about it. And there were a bunch of other tricks that Jason played in his world's winning deck. That Jolteon Star we saw previously, that puts 1 damage counter on each active Pokemon, which kind of cool. And Jirachi EX, that if your opponent had an EX or Stage 2 Pokemon, you could use Shield Beam for a single Psychic Energy to do 30 damage and stop them using Poké Powers next turn. It was just a cheaper way to get the Poké Power lock going if you didn't have your Stage 2 Gardevoir with the right amount of energy on. And we saw that Windstorm was there for getting rid of tools and stadiums, which, as we saw in previous videos, could be kind of devastating. We saw Cyclone Energy, which was just another way of making your opponent switch their Pokemon with one of their bench. And sure, they got to choose, but that's fine. Because, again, Dusknoir could come in and get rid of it, and that was kind of hilarious, if I'm honest with you. And then we had those ridiculous energy cards like Double Rainbow Energy and Scramble Energy, which only went to help decks like this. It was kind of ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. It was kind of ridiculous. Now, in terms of other decks, I'll be honest with you, there weren't any kind of huge ones. I suppose it's worth shouting out Bayonet Blissey. And it gives me a good excuse to give a shout out to PTCGRadio.com. Great place to get old deck lists. And I've seen a lot more people talking about this website lately, so I think the secret is starting to get out, which is awesome because this website should not be a secret. It's great. And essentially, we've got the Blissey we looked at last week with the Kind Egg Poké Power that let you choose a number of cards in your hand up to the amount of energy attached to Blissey, put them on top of your deck, shuffle them in, and then draw that many cards to refresh your hand, along with an attack that did 20 damage, plus 10 more for each energy attached to Blissey, but then let you search your discard pile and attach an energy, which built up very, very quickly. Why would we play that with Bayonet? Gardevoir counter. Because like I've been saying pretty much all video, when Secret Wonders came around, the format became play Gardevoir Glade or counter Gardevoir Glade. They were essentially your two options. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that was Secret Wonders. Not an out-and-out phenomenal set in and of itself, although literally the next 7 sets in a row are all special, but definitely a set which brought us a few cards which just completely changed the game. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you want to say. I want to know your memories of this set. If you don't have memories of this set, I want to know your impressions of the set having seen it now. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio. Spam the like button.